And welcome to another edition of the Batchelor News Report on the Batchelor News Network. I'm LA Batchelor. Thank you for joining us wherever you're watching and listening. Hopefully at YouTube at Pad Nation One, you can subscribe there. Uh, if you are on YouTube at Pad Nation One, subscribe. If you're on Facebook, Pad Nation One, just click the like button. It helps us tremendously. Want to bring my guest. Always good to have him on when he's got some time. He is the Director of Communications at Morehouse College and Media Coordinator, Cricket MEAC SWAC Challenge, which we want to talk about in just a bit. He is AD Drew. And AD, always a pleasure to have you on, my bro.
Man, this is great to be back on the Bachelor News Report, man.
Thank you. Thank you. Before we get to that, I want to get to some HBCU news. I don't know, I'm sure you heard, but I don't know why. If you know why Tennessee State's head basketball coach Brian Penny Collins stepped down, apparently to take a NBA job. Do you have any more updates on that? I guess a interim coach would be Eric Buggs there until they come up with a permanent coach.
Uh, do you know why? Do you know what the money of the league is versus the money of Tennessee State? That would be
Yeah.
a good reason why. I don't know this specific reason, but I kind of speculate that's a top three on the list.
Yeah, that most definitely. Yeah, it's. I guess also I had someone that said, uh, it was the best of both worlds because they were struggling a little bit, and of course here comes the NBA calling at some point. I still don't know which team he's been rumored to go to, but stepping down nevertheless.
Yeah. And probably the assistant coach giving the timeline of this shift, he's probably going to be my speculation being in athletic administration, he's going to get an opportunity to audition all year for this job because it would be tough to bring in somebody this late. It's July now. By the time you go through the hiring process, interview process, unless they had a good heads up, I mean, it's going to be August before you can bring somebody in. If you go through the entire process, and if you bring somebody in August, you're not going to have a chance to recruit, so you're going to be stuck with whatever's left on campus. And how many of these young men are going to leave out in that interim? So my speculation would be that the current interim is probably going to get a full year audition. And, good luck to him. So, how many interim coaches have we seen take jobs on a full-time basis? And of course, on the flip side, how many interim coaches have laid an egg? So, but this is this man's opportunity, hopefully.
To do well, yeah, to have a great season in the Ohio Valley Conference. I want to stay with basketball and give big ups to no surprise to the San Antonio Spurs who invited Hampton guard Noah Farrakhan to their summer roster to play in the league in the summer, and hopefully he gets a shot on the main roster there. But the bigger picture, AD, is once again, and we've talked about this in football, not as much, but certainly it seems in basketball that once again no HBCU players have been drafted in the NBA draft. Talk about that. I know there's the conventional wisdom of if you're good, they'll find you. But it makes it harder if you're not even drafted, and it makes it even more difficult, I guess, because there's only um, 2 rounds of 2 days of draft as opposed to the NFL where they have more days and more draftees, if you will. And to talk about the lack of HBCU players getting drafted to the NBA.
Let's just do the math here. LA NBA 450 roster spots, 60 players drafted annually. And realistically, of those 60 players, about half of those actually wind up making a roster. And with maybe another quarter of them becoming possibly two-way players that sign contracts. In the NFL, there are, if you count practice squad, there are 2,016 roster spots available in the NFL. And there are 224 players drafted annually that you can guarantee that's drafted. Is usually around 250 some odd with the compensatory picks. So just the numbers of players drafted, spots available, the numbers play out more towards the NFL than the NBA. This is something that we talked about on our podcast last about 2-3 weeks ago. BCSN Sports Wrap available each and every Sunday night, 6:00 p.m. Eastern on the Black College Sports Network, my JBN online on YouTube. Shameless plug there. But we talked about that though. This same phenomenon. I'm not as mad at the NBA as I am at the NFL. And the reason I say that is because in the NFL, we still get picked up by these teams. We may get one player drafted annually, but when you look up with the UDFAs and everything else and the camp invites, we wind up getting 5 to 7 to 10 players in the league every year. Hell, when the last time we had an NBA player in the league? I can tell you when the last player who was drafted, which was Kyle O'Quinn out of Norfolk State, I believe, in 2012. But so and my point of bringing that up is, LA, when given the opportunity in the NFL, we have players who have shown that they can play and play at a high level, play at Pro Bowl levels. NBA, we have not shown that we have had the players that have been able to play at that level. Even the players who started at an HBCU and transferred to the power schools still have not shown it. But let's not single out HBCUs when we talk about this, LA. How many players from group non-power schools, group of 5 schools, Division II, NAIA schools do we see not only not get drafted, but even make the league, even on the G League team? It's not a whole lot. Not without going overseas first, my brother.
Yeah, so, but the only thing about that, AD, is that one would say, okay, yeah, but I see more foreign players get drafted in the NBA and the WNBA, by the way, their lack of HBCU draftees. Then I see the HBCUs and, like you said, the non-power schools. So it just seems as though if it goes back to that old adage, how can I show what I can do if I don't get a chance to show what I can do? Just like the coaches, same thing.
You want me to be honest with you, man?
Yeah, go ahead.
Have you seen our players play basketball?
Yeah.
Have you seen the skill set that these foreign players come over with?
Yeah, and they shoot and do nothing. They shoot and do nothing else.
Right. And as a coach, and I'm going to offend some people when I say this, the foreign players coming in 18, 19, 20 years old are a more complete player than our American players. I'm not even going to single out HBCU players, than our American players. Especially if you're not a one and done in today's college, the chances of you getting a shot making the league are very minimal. And even with those one and dones, that's still only half of the first round, because the other half are European players. But the European game is a much more complete game. They tend to pass better, see the court better, work on their ball handling. But that's a product of the system that we play with in America. It's nothing against our American-born players, but those kids, 14, 15 years old, they go to basketball academies. The closest thing that we have to a basketball academy is when you go to college, or you may go to a prep school. But they get over there, they get their education, and it's basketball, education basketball. Where in America, because the high school system is not conductive for developing professional basketball players at an early age. That's why you see a lot of our kids who have to play 2, 3, 4 years of college ball go overseas for a few years or go to other minor leagues and then come back and could be big time contributors on an NBA roster. Because that same development that the European player was getting at 15, we're not getting till we're 23, 24 when we go overseas. So it's a product of what we do, because I'm here to tell you, AAU basketball does not get you better.
Well, I kind of respectfully disagree, because it sounds like when you say foreign players are more developed, really it just means foreign players score. Ask the Lakers why asked the Mavericks why they traded Luka Doncic. They didn't trade him because he couldn't score. They traded him because he don't play defense. They come over and score. You think that
and Jalen Brunson plays defense?
Well, but look, you think Joker can stop Shaq, or Shaq?
That's a bad one. Nobody can stop Shaq. You got to give me a better example than that.
But my point is, Joker will give you 30 and 10 rebounds, but he ain't really playing defense. To me, the complete player plays on the defensive end. Our sports society is so caught up in scoring, and that's not, the scoring doesn't make you all around player. Scoring makes you a scorer. Kevin Durant ain't known as some great defensive player. He's just one of the greatest shooters we've ever seen. Steph Curry, same thing. He's not known for his defense. He's known for scoring. Makes him great because he's a great scorer, but is he an all-around player? And the foreign players are not all around him.
How many all-around players can you truly name in the league? Score at all three levels, defend, rebound, pass.
LeBron, Kawhi, Paul George in his prime.
LeBron don't play no defense.
Yeah, well, yeah, he play more defense than Luka.
He does, but my point being, LA, those players are few and far between. And you may have one, if you're lucky, you have one player like that on every NBA roster, if you're lucky. But we have to remember, this is a business when you're talking about the league. And each one of those people, that 12-man active roster, 15-man total roster, has a job. And I've been around many people, I've coached people, I know people who played in the league. They have a specific job. You get put on that roster to do one specific thing.
Right.
If you're a ball handler, your job is to bring the ball up the court. If you're a rebounder, your job is to be Dennis Rodman or Draymond Green. That's your job. That's what your primary job is. You have a job to do. We got somebody who can score the ball. We got Steph over there. We got KD over there. We got the man. We pay him $30 million to score. We don't pay you to score. Now, keep this in mind. Anybody in the league can give you 30 on any night, if allowed to. But that's not what they get paid to do. They get paid to do other things. We have to remember the business side of it. So, yeah, people like Curry's a freak. Nobody's been able to shoot like that. Hart, Kyrie, Durant, those are the elite of the elite. They have a specialized skill set, and they also have that skill set that is marketable, where people want to pay to see Kyrie. People don't want to see LA Batchelor play ball. People don't want to see Drew play basketball no more. Even when I in my day, nobody wanted to pay to see me play basketball. My job was to pass the ball down low to whoever was playing the post.
Ain't nobody want to see Stephen A. Play basketball when he was at Winston-Salem getting splinters in his butt.
Exactly. Don't nobody want to pay to listen to him talk about it half the time either. But
that's right. That's
right. but see that's the thing. But getting back to my point, but I'm not saying at the age at which a lot of these players are drafted, which is 19, 20, 21 years old, the European player is slightly more developed all around, has a little bit more of an all-around skill set than our players. Look,
and I agree.
We're not pounding the ball 20 times, shooting up a 28-foot three-pointer, or coming off a high screen roll. Most American players can't do anything.
Right. I agree that the skill set in terms of ball handling and all those things, and it does help. Like hockey has the same thing. They get kids at 14 and they develop their skills and stuff. I'm just saying, and to your point of, everybody seemingly coming out of college or prep school or wherever can score when they get an NBA, but on certain rosters, I agree, they don't want you to do that. They want you to rebound, or they want you to do whatever else like that. I'm just saying that, just giving it a look, or at least drafting more kids to the G League would be a little more suffice. I'm with you on the NFL because they, look what Shador went through, and he's a high profile guy. So imagine what some of these other kids will go through. So we can agree on that.
Yes.
Talking with AD Drew, of course, the director of communications. Morehouse, he's the host on the Black Collar Sports Network and media coordinator, cricket, the MEAC SWAC Challenge game coming up. Their press conference, going to get to that in just a sec. One other topic I want to get to. Not too long ago, Beyonce gave $100,000 to Texas Southern. Now it's the marching band, but
to the soul,
right? And so, the bigger picture is she's giving. And if you can get more people like that to give, wouldn't that help some of these HBCUs are struggling to keep their doors open? They don't have the endowment money. And, we got DEI out there. They're trying to...
You can't say those three letters together, man.
Huh?
You can't say those three letters together.
I know, right? So would that be a huge boost if we get not only just their money to the HBCUs, but the recognition of the need to help the HBCUs?
Oh, most definitely. Obviously, there's a relationship that the Ocean of Soul and Beyonce have, as they performed for her during her, I believe it was the 2024 halftime for the Super Bowl. It helps that she's a Houston native, so they have that relationship. They happen to have that person with money with that relationship. Of course, LA, that's the most basic question. Of course, stuff like that would help. Be it that you give it to the band or a specific sports team or a specific major at the school, a medical major, business school, whatever. Of course, these things would help, but we have to not be sitting around waiting on the handout. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm going to take the check and I'm going to cash it. And I'll send you the receipt and let you know that I cashed it. But that's not what we need to do. We have struggled to get what we're supposed to get. It would also help if we hadn't been underfunded by billions of dollars over the lifetimes of our HBCUs. Heck,
and
what
to
did it
that
just
point,
win Tennessee State like $96 million or something along those lines? Yeah. But even still, getting that $96 million still does not touch what they have actually underfunded Tennessee State by. So, no, I don't want my reparations. I just want my fair share. What you all have taken from me, what you all owe me. Don't give me nothing. Just get me back to level. And I can handle it from there.
And I was talking with someone about this, and who works at a HBCU, and he said some of the issues with celebrities and people with money concerns are once these schools get the money, they don't manage the money right. And we've seen schools that you and I know, we don't have to mention, that have gone from D1 to D2 based on not having compliance officers and not being in compliant, among other things. So what's your thought on that? That they manage the money, which is why a lot of people don't give as much. We're not even talking about alum and everything else, but just outsiders.
A, it ain't just black schools that mismanage money. Number one. Number two, if you look at it, you seen more non-HBCUs that have closed over the last 5 years than you have seen HBCUs that have closed for financial issues over the last 5 years. Uh, uh, what else did you ask about? So when it comes to the money, that's not it. You talk about compliance officers, sports information directors, other administrators that you have to have, heck, even down to trainers. There's a shortage nationwide. That shortage just does not affect HBCUs. There's a shortage nationwide. You can go on to various job boards, professional boards, and look and see how many jobs are available in these specific areas. Now, here comes the other but with that, though. A lot of these jobs are out there, but they don't fund the positions until it's too late. So you need a compliance officer. You're supposed to have 5 compliance officers. You make 2 people do the work of 5 people. You got the other 3 positions posted, but you don't have money in your budget to pay for the other 3 people. Okay, you just got a slap on the wrist by SACS or by the NCAA or whatever. So we're gonna hire one of them, but we still don't have the other 2. Oh, hey, they got this grant program. Now we get this grant to go and hire the other 2 people. But when we get that grant funding in, we don't even think about when that money runs out and the sustainability of being able to keep that job. Thank you for your 2 years of services. Just 2-year grant is over. Go find you another job. Unfortunately, that's what happens to us a lot of times.
Yeah, unfortunately, you're absolutely right. And I bring it up because my love for and passion for the fact that HBCUs and why they still exist. Final topic of question. Of course, the press conference is coming up Thursday, July 17th. It's the Cricket MEAC SWAC Challenge kickoff. Tell us about that and how you got involved.
The press conference is going to be Thursday, the 17th, on live from Center Park Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. And I will have some breaking news about this coming out real soon there, LA. I'll give you a hint. The press conference may be live this year, maybe streamed live. It's never been streamed live before. It's always been recorded. So, you heard it here first. Even before I announce it on my own network. You heard it here first.
Well, we appreciate it. I know if you could give me all the information, you would. And but people talk about the MEAC SWAC Challenge. I think it's great. And then some people say, well, should HBCUs keep that game as sort of the quasi Super Bowl, or just we all have our polls. You pick the 2 top teams, the top team in D1 and D2, and they're like the champions. Maybe they make postseason play depending upon which level. But is this MEAC SWAC Challenge should be considered like the top of the line game, even though they don't have a SIAC CIAA challenge.
Yeah. I've got to watch my words closely.
Okay.
Because the person who should be answering this question because they're going to tote this from the proper line. But I will say this: I want to correct you on one thing, though, LA.
Yeah.
The Super Bowl is a celebration bowl at the end of the season. That's the Super Bowl for HBCUs, and it's yes, it's about the game, but it's more about the experience along with the game. So let's keep that in mind.
Right.
And the MEAC SWAC Challenge, once again, is a great way to bring people together for a true HBCU experience for a game that kicks off the college football season. It's that simple. What better way to kick off the college football season? Starts in Atlanta, ends in Atlanta. Like I say, I've got to make sure that I let our official spokesperson say everything. But this is what I can tell you: the MEAC SWAC Challenge kickoff press conference, the Cricket MEAC SWAC Challenge 20th anniversary kickoff press conference will be held July 17th from Center Park Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. It will be streamed live. More information will come out about where you can watch that stream. And you did apply for your credentials, or will you be there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Want to make sure. We got to slap all heads with each other. You know how that goes.
I know it's been a minute.
Yeah. So it will be live. It will be an experience. It will be hosted by one of the new members of the 2025 class of the Black College Hall of Fame, that being Jay Scott Walker, will be our moderator for the classic. And it's once again, it's a great event. You can log on to MEACSWACChallenge.com if you want to get your tickets now. Tickets are going fast. Tickets are on sale. They are going fast. Suites. If you know about that suite, you about that sweet life, LA, aren't you? You better hurry. You better hurry up and get your suites now if you want your suites. There are limited suites still available for the event. But once again, stay tuned to MEACSWACChallenge.com for more information about the event.
And just the final thing, real quick, explain to people that have never been to any HBCU game, football, basketball, because it's not just the game. Like you said, it's the experience. It's the marching bands. It's the cheerleaders. It's like no other. Explain, if you go there to see this game, what you get besides football.
It's a combination. So you got the barbecue and you got the cookout. We have the cookout. So we tailgate in a totally different way. We want you to come in the game. We expect you to come in the game. But the party outside the stadium is just as great as the party inside the stadium. Yeah. It's a rock concert combined with a football game. Once you get inside, the pageantry of the bands, bruh, the fashion show that you see when you come to these games, from the Divine Nine paraphernalia to people wearing some. We don't say Sunday. Used to say Sunday best, but it's not your Saturday night best now. Wearing your club best, representing all the schools. You see different types of paraphernalia. It is just an experience that you cannot describe. You have to be there to absorb the atmosphere. I will tell you this: whenever you go to an HBCU football game, especially homecoming, classics, MEAC SWAC Challenge, Celebration Bowl, anything of the like, you better get there early and be prepared to walk, because you're not gonna be able to park close.
Yeah,
you have to walk. Street vendors, a t-shirt man, and any kind of food that you want, you're gonna be able to find it. That they come with some money, because if you don't come with money, you're gonna be mad because you're gonna see something That's the only time you ever gonna see it, and you gonna want it. Be it a T-shirt, be it that souvenir, whatever it is, you gonna want to get something from that experience to remember that experience by. It's all of that, and most importantly, LA, it's a family friendly atmosphere. This is still when it's all said and done, LA. When you go to a football game, be it an HBCU football game or any other football game, this is entertainment. This is your disposable income. You don't have to go to the game. There's no better way that you can spend money for your entertainment, especially your family, multiple generations, 6-year-old grandkid, 20-something-year-old parent, 40 to 50-year-old grandparent, and a 70 to 80-year-old great grandparent. One of them might be in school at the institution, one that graduated from the institution, the other one probably graduated from a rival knowing us. But it's just you can't explain it. See the difference between HBCU football and a lot of these upstarts that you see, like a Georgia State or a Kennesaw State, something like that. We go back 4, 5, 6 generations and root for, if not our HBCU, somebody's HBCU, because this is all we had coming up.
That's right.
Versus a Georgia State that's only been in existence since 2010.
Right.
So we've had the chance to build that fan base, to build those multiple generations. When Alabama, when Georgia Tech, North Carolina, did not want us on their campus, did not want us to play for them. This is all we had. And this is the devotion to that legacy that we once had as African American athletes. The HBCU product is still as pure as it can get when it comes to athletics and family entertainment.
Yeah. Living in Durham, I just couldn't imagine. People just don't know their history. I see more Duke jerseys and T-shirts than Central. But anyway, I don't want to go off that. But yeah, I look, I've taken my sons to a lot of HBCU football, basketball games, and as a member of the media, I'm very happy to go get cover the games and report on the games. But I love the food. So
let me say this. At one point in time, I worked for a non-HBCU in college athletics.
Right.
And when I got back to an HBCU, the first game I did after working at that non-HBCU, coming back to the HBCU, I just had to stop. I had to look. I had to take in the atmosphere. And I said to myself, damn, I miss this. Feeling the poo-poo. I'll say poo-poo since we on the air. But I missed this. Yeah, I had missed it for 2 years.
Yeah, I'm working at Appalachian State and doing their games. I love that. They treat you right, but it's different when I was doing Winston-Salem State and Shaw and those other schools.
Yeah. And nothing wrong with what they do, but when you grow up in this and you get it, it's just like me. I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri. I moved to the South, Tallahassee, Florida, graduate of Florida A&M. And I have pretty much, since going to college at 18 years old, I have chosen to live my life in the South. Why? Because once I got a taste of that Southern living, it was over with, man. Mm-hmm. I went back up there. I tried to move back up there in my late 20s, and what happened? Yeah, right around 30. And I think I moved back up there when I was like 28, 29 years old. By the time I was 32, I was gone, man.
Yeah, I bounced around myself. AD, before you go, let people know how they can follow you and check out your show, sir.
Well, a couple of ways. Number one, And I'm surprised you didn't ask me about Morehouse College, man, because I'm expecting us to do some good things in football. But
Well,
anyway,
off air, I was gonna say, hey, can you get Coach that? So
I got you.
Yeah.
Shoot me an email. I'll try to get Coach Mathis on, who will be beginning his second season at Morehouse College. Matter of fact, before the BX SWAC challenge press conference, before the SWAC press conference, the SIAC also will be having their media day, which will be July 15th in Macon, Georgia. Don't know who's picking up the coverage of that. They haven't released that information to us yet, but that will be July 15th, which will be the same day as the CIAA press conference there, LA. I'm pretty sure you're going to be covering the CIAA. So afterwards, we're going to have to trade notes so that we can cover the opposite conference with it for each other, man.
Absolutely. And expecting great things from Coach and Morehouse this year. It's very competitive, but we'll see what happens. But your show as well. Go ahead.
But and for in relationship to Morehouse College, MorehouseAthletics.com is our website. You can go to there, and all my information is listed there on the website as the Director of Athletic Communications for Morehouse College. You can also catch me each and every Sunday night on the Black College Sports Network. I do a podcast called the BCSN Sports Wrap with Brian Fulford each and every Sunday night beginning at 6 o'clock on myjbn.net. On YouTube, you can find us on MyJBN online, on all other social media, my BCSN and the number 1, which is kind of where I got my Twitter handle at BCSN Drew, just so you know.
Right.
And then of course I am also I'm working like a Jamaican over here, man. I also coordinate media relations for the Cricket BX SWAC Challenge Kickoff, the Red Lobster Band of the Year, and the Cricket Celebration Bowl. Also, so if you're following those events, you can go on to those appropriate websites. They all have their own distinct website: BX SWAC Challenge, Celebration Bowl, and Band of the Year. But all those will lead you back to me if you need some information on all 3 of those. So, and I still do consulting work. So anybody out there needs a consultant in athletic communications, holler at your boy. I got a team that I had together. We'll be able to get your school up and going and get it looking right within a couple of weeks.
Man, you got 13 job, like you said. So
and I need 13 checks to go along with them jobs. So have check, we'll travel.
Yeah, me too. I appreciate you, AD. Always good to have you on, man. Keep doing what you're doing. I love you, and you be safe, bro.
All right, then. We'll chat it up, man.
All right, now.
Appreciate it.
All right. AD Drew, always good to have him on. Check him out Sundays, 6 p.m., Black College Sports Network. He does a show there. Take a break. Get back to my next guest on the Batchelor News Network.
HBCU, Pro Sports Media Association, providing accurate and comprehensive coverage of historically Black colleges and university sports, news, features, commentary, analysis, and multimedia content from the leading voices in Black media. We are committed to telling the stories of HBCU athletes and programs. Visit us at hbcuprosportsmedia.com.
Welcome back to the show. We thank you for joining us wherever you are. If you're on YouTube, Pad Nation 1, please do subscribe to the show, Pad Nation 1 at YouTube, and of course, Pad Nation 1 at Facebook. Any of the media outlets that have podcasts and downloads, you can surely find us. Want to bring in my next guest. Always good to see this young man traveling in the world. Boy, and I gotta tell you, Andrew, if your father didn't spit you out, then y'all look like twins. You're gonna look like him when you get older, man. That picture, I'm like, oh my God, that's him. That's him in 30 years or something like that. But good to have on Andrew Dixon, of course, he is a soccer analyst and reporter covering the USA soccer and beyond. And great to have you on. I see you got your USA shirt on as well, sir.
Kickoff's in about 21 minutes, so yes.
I know, and I appreciate your patience, but I wanted to just quickly go back to USA playing Costa Rica. And, Andrew, when you look statistically, and a lot of times in soccer, you really can't judge it on that. But, I mean, the U.S. shots on goal, shots, possessions, Costa Rica had more yellow cards. On paper, it doesn't look like a tie, but it ended up in a tie. What happened in this game?
The U.S., as you mentioned, the U.S. kind of dominated that game. Possession-wise, they were moving the ball. They got more. They didn't have as many shots on goal as you probably would have liked. But for the most part, Costa Rica, they really packed it in defensively. They really sat back. They really tried to hit the United States on the break. And their two goals really were, as they say in soccer, against the run of play when the United States had all the momentum, moving the ball, possessing the ball, really trying to, really make things happen. And it was really a bad giveaway for a penalty in the first half by Arfison. And then US got caught on a break on the second. So, we always say in soccer, the only statistic that really truly matters is what's on the scoreboard. And Costa Rica, they always give the United States problems. And so it was a really hard-fought game. It was a real physical game, as it always is whenever the United States is playing against one of the Central American teams, as they will play tonight in the semifinals. But Costa Rica is no pushover. They finished second behind that team down south, as I like to refer to them, earned their way into the quarterfinals. So this was not supposed to be a walkover for the United States team, especially given the personnel that the U.S. has. But, it's a knockout tournament, and anything can happen in these knockout tournaments. As you've already seen, there's been some upsets. The United States playing Guatemala tonight, as opposed to who they were expected to play, which was Canada, who really came into this tournament as favorites. So anything happens in these knockout tournaments, or when you get to the knockout rounds of these tournaments, these countries are playing with pride. They're playing with heart. They're giving everything they've got. And, they stuck to their game plan. They made it difficult for the United States to try and break them down, similar to what Saudi Arabia tried to do in the group stage. The United States, they fought. And, they really, really showed a lot of heart in that match. And ultimately, they were able to come through on penalties.
Talking with Andrew Dixon here on the Batchelor News Network. Andrew, when you look at each group, certainly, the USA with Uruguay and Panama ahead there, but you mentioned, and rightly so, the upset with Canada. When you look at Group A, B, and D, who are the teams you expect to come out?
Well, we're already into the knockout phase, so the group phase is over. We're already into the semifinals.
Right. My bad.
Yeah. But you expected, you had your usual suspect. You expected Canada, who really came in as the favorites in this, really playing the best soccer out of all of the top nations within CONCACAF. You expected that team down south. You expected the United States to do well. Again, this is not the United States, first team, so to speak, but you still expected them to come out and do well. You expected Panama to do some stuff as well. They've done really well in tournaments over the last several years. So a lot of usual suspects got out of the group. It's just what happens when you get to these knockout phases. Canada was, comfortably ahead. They had 1-0 lead. They were, doing what they needed to do, and then they get a red card. And they play shorthanded for the rest of the match. Guatemala, they fought, they ground, and eventually got the game into penalties, and that's why they're playing the United States tonight instead of Canada. Same thing with Panama. They went out, expected to go a little farther than they did. So you have a lot of the usual suspects, but again, when you get to these knockout phases of these tournaments, especially in CONCACAF, anything can really happen, and we've seen that already.
What do you expect in this game against Guatemala? Like you made reference to them being tough, like Costa Rica. No slouch. What do you expect, and do you expect USA to win?
Yeah, I do expect the United States to win. They have, pretty much dominated their, the head-to-head series. I think they've won 16 times. Last loss that they had out of the 5 losses that they've had against Guatemala was about 8 years ago. I expect the United States really to, win this game fairly comfortably. But Guatemala is going to fight. They're going to scratch. They're going to kick. They will play physical. A lot of these Central American teams, when they come up against the United States, they always try to play them physical. Really try to instigate stuff, try to get them, get into their heads. Think 1989 Detroit Pistons. That type of mentality to really try to get the U.S. off their game. But the U.S. is. As you said, they've dominated possession. They know how to move the ball. They've had some really good performances from people like Diego Luna. Certainly, Malik Tillman has played very well. Sebastian Berhalter, the son of the last coach, has really shown himself very well. And it's important for these players to really take advantage of this. As I mentioned, a lot of the first team players are not here. There's no Christian Pulisic, there's no Weston McKennie, no Tim Weah, no Sergino Dest, no Gio Reyna. Tyler Adams, who captained the United States in the last World Cup, he's there. So was Tim Ream, who helped marshal the back line at the last World Cup. But a lot of players are really trying to really make their mark in this tournament. People like, as I mentioned, we need to see more of Patrick Aguilar. Luca De La Torre is another one who's really needs to kind of come together and really show what he's worth in these last few games. Brendan Harrison has kind of fallen off a little bit. He's coming off the bench in this. So I really expect, a lot of the U.S. players to really try to take advantage of, these last 2 games here in the semifinals. And if they get through to the final, certainly into the final, to really show themselves and really make that stake that claim to be considered in the World Cup squad that will be coming out next year.
Yeah, the Gold Cup. When you look at USA, they're so dominant. They pass the ball very well. Like you said, you wanted to see their shot percentage a little higher, but they're still winning. Is it better for these teams to be conservative and just kind of hang around to win, or be aggressive against this USA team?
I think a lot of teams, they really try to catch the U.S. on the break. They really kind of dare the U.S. to break them down. And we've seen a lot of that in this tournament. They really, and I think maybe just a lack of respect, but they really don't think the United States has that kind of individual quality, to break down a defense that's really sitting back. And if they can get out on the break, and really catch the United States on a counterattack, they feel that they can do that. Saudi Arabia, they played essentially, 11 people behind the ball for most of that match, and dared the United States to break them down. And it really took a really well done free kick between Berhalter and Chris Richards to get the goal to separate the sides. But teams will make it difficult against the United States. A lot of these teams in the Gold Cup, anyway. I think when you get to the World Cup, a lot of these other teams feel that they can just possess and play and do better than the United States in that regard. But in the Gold Cup, aside from maybe Canada, aside from maybe that team down south, a lot of these teams do tend to. Costa Rica, Panama is another one. These teams will literally kind of sit back and say, I dare you to beat us. And it's going to be up to the United States to first of all take advantage of their chances, create those chances in front of goal. Get not just half chances where you had a kind of decent look at a shot, or you really have a clear cut chance, like what you saw with the second goal against Costa Rica the other night. That's the kind of chances, the type of offense that you want to make sure that you're producing to make those chances available for your forwards or your midfielders coming in from behind. That's the kind of flow, so to speak, that you want to have for the United States. So that's what I'm looking for tonight. Again, it's going to be, I'm sure Guatemala will sit back. I'm sure they're going to foul a lot to try and break up the U.S. rhythm. But, if the United States can, really establish, especially if they can get an early goal and really put the pressure on Guatemala that way, they can kind of control the game.
Talk with Andrew Dixon here on the Batchelor News Report. Andrew, switching to the women's side of things, talk about dominance. I don't think if I'm not mistaken that they haven't given up a goal so far. They beat Ireland twice. Now you talk about Canada. If they face a Canada team that's formidable, and I know that the women, they want to cap off a perfect summer, but this is a rival that they know. This is a rival that they've gone toe to toe with. What do you see in this match tonight?
Uh, Canada's good, but they're not on the U.S.'s level right now. They really aren't. You really have to look at some of the European teams, I think, right now to find a team that can really match what the United States is doing now. Even with some of the first team players that are missing, they're still firing on all cylinders right now. They have really run up the score against some of these teams. I mean, they dominated Ireland a few games back. Canada's, their rival. They're a team that always brings, a lot of toughness. They always, try to go toe to toe with the United States. They've beaten them on a couple of occasions, but I don't expect much trouble for the United States ladies tonight. Their next World Cup is going to be in 2027. So all of these are really just trying to fine tune the players. Really identify the players that are, similar with the Gold Cup now, identify those players that are really going to be making that, making that rush for the Olympics next year. And of course, for the, not next year, but in a few years. And certainly, for the World Cup in 2027, which the United States want to get back. They lost in the quarterfinals at the last World Cup. A lot of people were down on them. It was kind of the team in transition. And they came for a lot of, I thought, unfair criticism from, certain members of the media who called them unlikable and, questioned, the culture surrounding the team and things like that. But, the United States is retooling. They won the Olympics last year. I think, they're on an upward trajectory. And their new coach has really got them firing all cylinders right now. So comfortable win for the ladies tonight, I think.
And Canada's in transition to new coach. I think just got hired, January or February or somewhere around there. How important, though, Andrew, is it to do well for the men and women in the Gold Cup leading to the World Cup? Because like you said, the women have something to prove now. They got that bad taste in their mouth. Almost like, when you're I can't compare it to preseason, but the World Cup is a World Cup. And so how much momentum do they need? How much of their roster needs to be in place, health-wise and otherwise, in order to win in the World Cup?
Well, I mean, obviously, the next year is going to be really important. Aside from the Gold Cup, obviously, this is going to give, some of these players who are kind of on the fringes of the first team a lot of confidence if they do well, if they're able to, lift the trophy, at the end of this weekend. I think it's really important, not only, just for the team, but considering the fact that the World Cup is here in the United States for the most part. Obviously, the United States is co-hosting with Canada and Mexico. So it's going to be very important, for the growth of the game, for real exposure of people. I remember I really became, I was like the game when I was younger, but I really became a real fan when the World Cup was here back in 1994. I went to 3 different matches, in fact, including I saw Diego Maradona's last game with Argentina, and that inspired me to pick up the game at 25 the next year. So you're going to have a similar effect. So it's really important that the United States to do well, do well in the tournament coming up. As it relates to the Gold Cup, again, you want to make sure that you've got people who are willing to play, willing to lay it on the line, who are really willing to step up and take that next step into, first team and really contribute, not just to be on the first team, but, push some of the first team players that are already there to make them better. And it's also important for the coach, Mauricio Pochettino, who came into a lot of fair criticism because of a lackluster start to his tenure as manager for the United States. There was a lot of people that didn't want him just simply because he was not an American. In fact, Bruce Arena, who led the United States to that quarterfinal finish in 2002, and it's hard to believe that's been 23 years ago now. But he was very vocal about we need to have an American coach. I think Bob Bradley might have said something along those lines as well. So him coming from Argentina, although he's had success, this is his first real national team coaching job. So he's really been primarily club coach. In fact, he brought Tottenham Hotspurs, I think it was, to the UEFA Champions League final. So he's had an up and down start to his tenure as manager of the United States, and so it's important for him to learn how MLS works, learn how these players work, and how you're going to integrate the players that are here into the first team, so to speak. And because during the Nations League, when he had the first team at his disposal, they didn't play with the passion. It's not saying they didn't want to win, but they didn't play with the same sharpness and play with the same passion, the same verb that you would expect the United States team, considering what we have coming up next year, which is hosting the World Cup. So it's important not just for the players, but also for the manager as well.
I think it's important, like you said, for the continuing evolution of the game to have the Gold Cup here in the United States. That way people can see it on hand. An 8-year-old kid can go to that stadium and watch the play. And like you said, you were older, obviously, but when you saw them right here in the United States, it's different, right? Because not everybody can go to Argentina to see a game and that kind of thing. So the two-part question, has the game gotten better in terms of excitement, in terms of the numbers of fans, sort of like this phenomenal increase with the WNBA? They're about to add 2 teams. I know the soccer leagues have done that, adding teams. The play has been great. So how important is that? And is it fair to say with this manager of the team, if you want to be critical because the team lacks enthusiasm or they underachieved, that's one thing, but to criticize someone because they're not American is something entirely different.
Yeah, it's not the first time we've seen that. And you see it in other places as well. I mean, England has had some foreign managers as well, and that's caused some consternation, but they've also had some good results. You got to remember that the United States, when they last hosted the World Cup, the head coach at that time was Boris Milutinovic, who I think he's from Serbia, remember correctly, but he'd also coached in Mexico, longtime coach in Mexico, in fact. So we've had success with foreign coaches, and certainly with Jurgen Klinsmann, however you want to, criticize his managerial style and the fact that his second tenure didn't go as well, he still got us out of the group of death in 2014 when a lot of people did not expect. In fact, Alexi Lawless said to the team, I don't expect y'all to get out of this group, and they did. Right. So, again, I understand where you're going to say that, okay, to really understand how important it is for American soccer to to evolve and to take its place amongst one of the top drawing in terms of attendance and attention from the news media and things like that. You want someone who really truly understands and feels that passion. I understand that, but you also want to have someone who actually can get the results. Pochettino does not. This is not some slouch coach. This is not some random guy that just picked out of nowhere. This guy has a good, at least on the club side, he has a good track record. So it's important for that. But generally, and again, it is important that the United States, not only does well, shows well, and really helps to, as I mentioned, as I like to say, grow the game, so to speak. And I think if they win the Gold Cup again, it'll bring a little more. A little more attention to show that the United States can play. But the real acid test is going to be, of course, with the World Cup next year. And, you hope, given the draw, given that, it's a home, hopefully it's a home crowd, depending on, who else is in the group, that they're going to be able to, have a successful World Cup. Obviously you want them to do well just in the immediate because you just want to see your team do well. But in terms of overall growth, you also hope that they have a good showing that'll allow the game to grow. And it has. I mean, it's grown exponentially since I started following it. I remember having to, for away games, for qualifiers, having to, find some, Spanish language restaurant up in near American University when I lived in DC, having to go, down Tamiami Trail when I lived in Miami. You really have to really find these like small places that would show these games. Now you can see these games. In fact, I've had people from other countries tell me that there's more soccer on here in the United States than there is in certain places in Europe based on, their blackout rules and things like that. So the game has grown exponentially. I mean, you see the highlights on ESPN. There are, on Sirius XM, there's a whole channel devoted just to soccer. So you really do see, you really have seen the growth, certainly the last 30 years since I've really started, following the game, this closely.
Yeah. And Fox and TNT have really taken the baton and ran with it. Fox Sports 1 has a game shortly
Now,
at the time it's broadcast, and TNT as well. Real quick, your thoughts on switching to NBA? Your thoughts on OKC? Can they be a dynasty based on if they win back to back? Is that a dynasty? And what say you about your squad?
Start with OKC. I think I think it takes more than 2 championships to consider dynasty. They hadn't even reached the conference finals before this year, so it had been a while. But this is a young team, and it is a young, solid team that plays together. There was no, I mean, yes, you have your MVP and Alexander, but this is not a team where he has to be ball dominant. This is a team that really shared the basketball and really got after it defensively. That's what really, carried them through the West. I'm not, people may, say, okay, well, Halliburton went down in Game 7, so they, we really know how, they would have, won a championship had Halliburton not gotten hurt. You don't know, but they were certainly worthy champions. No one's going to argue that they didn't earn this championship. So depending on, of course, on injuries. Depending on what the front office does in terms of bolstering the squad, they really have a chance to really kind of lay down a mark over the next several years. So, as for the Lakers, they didn't really do a lot during this offseason, and that concerns me a little bit. They still need a center, and I still think, okay, they gave away AD to, get, a generational talent, so to speak, in Luka Doncic. I mean, I make that, I understand making that trade. No qualms with that trade.
They gave up a hell of a lot of defense. I know that,
and that's the thing. They gave up defense, and I think that hurt them a little bit in the playoffs this year. But they certainly got to get a center and a defensive-minded center, not necessarily one who needs to have the ball all the time, but certainly you want someone that's going to give you 12 to 14 points and can really anchor your defense. So if they can get that in free agency or whatever trades they make during the next season, they'll be okay. I think this might be LeBron's last. I'm thinking this is going to be LeBron's last season. I really kind of get those vibes, and it's going to be Luka's team. So if they want to have those two really compete for a championship coming out of a really stacked West now. I mean, the West is really, really stacked right now. That's what it's going to take. But no one expected the Lakers to get as far as they did, and no one expected it was winning games as many games as they did, especially bringing in a rookie coach like JJ Redick, who a lot of people came with gave him a lot of stick, didn't think he was ready, but he showed that he was ready to go, and he really coached that team well, and I think they'll be all right. It just need a center, and they need to sharpen up that defense, and then we'll see what they're capable of.
Yeah. Knicks get Mike Brown. I didn't even know, Gary. Mike Brown, the new head coach of the Knicks. That's some news there. We'll touch on that. But just as a note, Mark Williams with Charlotte, very good center, very defensive center. Last year, they were talking about the Lakers needed a center. I thought they should have traded for him. I forgot what team he went to. Ayton is out there. He just got a buyout from the Trailblazers, but he's not really a defensive center. He's more of a spot-up shooter, give you about 8 rebounds a game, not really a center. So I agree with you. The Lakers desperately have to get bigger, stronger inside. They need some more wing help too. But and I also agree with you. LeBron, opted in for 1 year, but he didn't extend anything. He usually extends. So maybe that's the sign that he's out of there. And go to the East. The East is a lot easier at this point right now if you want to win a title. Andrew, as always, my friend, good to have you on, man. Let's make it more often, as of course, throughout the rest of the year, more games, and it'll be leading up to more great soccer, sir.
Yes, no, as I said, we got the World Cup coming next year. I'll be starting to write a little bit more now. So I look forward to coming back on and talk about the beautiful game. So, hey, everybody, I know, even if, your audience isn't as familiar with the game, there's a lot of soccer to be watched now. So, hey, watch this game, learn the game, love the game. It's fun.
Appreciate you, bro.
All right. Thank you. Good to see you.
All right. Andrew Dixon, of course, covers the major USA Soccer World Cup coming up next year. Right now, the men are in the Gold Cup. They play tonight. Fox Sports 1 against Canada. No, I'm sorry, against Guatemala. Canada got upset, so Guatemala will be facing them. All expected the USA team to win pretty easily, but we'll see what happens. Take a break. Come back.
Times have changed. The power to create your own influence through your own network is now in your own hands. As a creative, marketing is essential, and you're limited to the number of marketing vehicles you have access to by the amount of money you have in your budget. We can help get you exposure all over the US, Africa, UK, for as little as $35 a month on our Roku and Amazon Fire Stick network. Big Mind Entertainment, we're the vehicle for creators of today and tomorrow.
Recovery Month has become widely recognized and does an outstanding job of celebrating recovery, increasing awareness, and acknowledging the amazing work of providers, advocates, people in recovery, and their families. I believe our work together is helping many Americans better understand, seek out, attain, and sustain recovery. What began as a small and very good idea has grown into a national, mainstream, sustained, and systematic public education and support effort, all focused on the message that people recover. Getting the message of recovery right is critical because people take action based on what they hear and see, and most importantly, what they experience. Experience shapes our knowledge, our values, our attitudes, our beliefs, and our action. Of those who recognized their need for treatment but didn't receive care, the number one reason was no health coverage and could not afford the cost. No one in need should be denied the opportunity for treatment and recovery in our country.
Welcome back to the show. I want to bring in my next guest, one of our favorite chiefs that we have on talking about law enforcement, Chief Virgil Green. And Chief, I appreciate you coming on as always, sir.
Hey, anytime, LA. How you doing?
Good. I want to start with the shootings in Minnesota. The killing of the Speaker of the House, if I'm not mistaken, Melissa Hortman, laid to rest the other day, and her husband. And it's been another shooting, and you can clarify in terms of these high-profile politicians. Talk about what happened and kind of get us up to speed on, who did what and if they had a manifesto. Take us to that.
Yeah. So LA, again, thanks for having me on the podcast. I think, several weeks ago, a tragic event unfolded in the Minneapolis Twin Cities area. I serve as a police chief to a neighboring city where this unfortunate incident took place, where after, and let me kind of go back, LA, that Friday, that Saturday night, a bunch of legislators had got together at an event at a fundraiser in downtown Minneapolis. And after that event was over with, everybody went home. Events changed after individuals got home, where a subject who's later, who has now been arrested, went to several legislators' homes, and he went to several homes. Some of those legislators were either not home or did not hear the door. And so he ended up going to a home in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, where he ended up knocking on the door and shooting and killing a wife who served as the Speaker of the Minnesota House of Representative, and shot and also killed her husband. He ended up leaving that home, went to another home in another suburb city neighboring to that, Champlin, Minnesota, to a senator's home, and shot and wounded that senator and his wife. LA, they were shot a total of 17 times between the both of them, and they both survived that shooting. But they have a long road to recovery. But this individual was dressed up as a police officer. He was driving a vehicle that resembled a police officer. And so they, unbeknownst to them, they thought that they were answering the door to a law enforcement officer.
Wow. Where do I begin? It's already tough for good policemen to do their job when sometimes you got bad cops, which put good cops in danger, I believe, and other people in danger. And then you have this moron in the White House that is allowing his attorney general and law enforcement to deputize people to arrest civilians. Add in ICE, who I don't think all of those people are federal agents. I think those are Proud Boys and other people dressed up, like you said, dressed up. This guy as a policeman dressed up. How do you even navigate as a police chief through all of that, on top of trying to protect? Protection is protection, but of course, obviously, if you're a politician, you're going to get more protection. But how do you navigate? How do you even go through all of that as a police chief, Virgil?
Well, I'll say this, LA, and I think one of the things, I think a lot of people may assume that politicians have some level of security. On a state level, you really don't see a lot of politicians, unless you're the governor or the attorney general, having some type of security detail. And so it is, that kind of falls in the hands of the local jurisdictions where those politicians live at. And so I think one of the things that has, unfortunately, has come out of this is how will local law enforcement protect politicians, elected officials, especially on the state level, who live in their cities. And oftentimes, some police departments really don't know where these legislators live at, and unless they have a good relationship with them. They may know of them living in their city, but they don't have a personal relationship with them to be able to pick up the phone and call them, or to say, hey, we're just checking on you, or we're coming by your home. So this situation that unfolded several weeks ago in the Minneapolis Twin Cities area has definitely put a lot of agencies to say, how do we make sure that our elected officials, we know where they live at, we know how to get in touch with them, and B, how often are we monitoring, the activities that they're involved with? Because, and I think it's also upon some of the legislators who probably do get a lot of hate mail to notify those agencies that they're receiving some type of threats. Because LA, this guy had a manifesto, he had a whole list of not just politicians, but people who were connected with abortion rights and other people on this list that he was going to be targeting.
Hmm. And the eerie part of it with this evil man is that he shot and killed the Speaker of the House and there and killed the husband. Almost a similar, I'm sure they feel blessed, is Speaker of the House of the United States, Nancy Pelosi.
Correct.
The guy went there looking to kill her at the Capitol and then went to her house and clubbed her husband.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating. You say they don't always have the kind of protection they have. Is part of the problem when it happens, right? Something that you talked about on your show and talked on my show before, the ability or the willingness to share intel between law enforcement, whether it be federal, state, or local, your precinct, your house. Mm-hmm. Is that part of the issue too, in terms of trying to avoid some of these tragedies?
It can be, and I think when you go back to what happened with Speaker Nancy Pelosi at her home in San Francisco. Now she was at that level where she had security detail assigned to her. And so, and also the police department there, they have a good relationship with her. And so even with that level of security, we still saw this individual who was able to breach that security level and to get inside of her home and to attack and assault her husband. And he was later, apprehended. So again, some of that LA has to do with federal agencies not sharing certain information with local law enforcement. And I think especially with our federal legislators, if the local law enforcement agencies don't know about these threats, and events happen, now everybody's looking and saying, okay, well, why we didn't know certain things were happening. And so it definitely needs to be a lot more of a collaboration between federal agencies and local law enforcement to discuss things that are going on with these politicians, especially if they're receiving, death threats or they're receiving some type of hate mail that rises to the level that could that could also impact their safety and also impact the safety of people who live around them, LA.
Great point. If you're just joining us, we're talking with Chief Virgil Green, Chief of Police in Minnesota, and of course, host of You and the Law, which we'll get to his show in just a bit. Incidentally, we also have a poll question out there. People asking me what I thought of the P. Diddy trial and if he got off. I will say the judge denied his bail, which nobody expected that. I think the judge kind of been against him in the first place, but I digress. And what about that, Chief? Just as a quick question on that, how do you determine what's a threat or not? His family's coming there, other people's family coming there, his ex-girlfriend, and all these different people coming in and out. Mm-hmm. And you'd only have so many law enforcement and police officers to go, to take care of all the law. That's why mm-hmm. some people get upset when they get stopped for speeding over the limit of stuff. When you got people getting murdered, get to a lot of different stories. But is there take us through what would happen if with the NYPD? I know they put the barricade type things up there and outside the courthouse to keep people outside, but that mm-hmm. doesn't mean somebody can get on a roof and be a sniper and take a shot at someone.
Well, I have to say this, Ella. I think New York, they do a very good job of protecting the perimeter around the courthouse, especially with somebody of a high profile as P. Diddy. Um, I'm pretty sure they have taken every security step to make sure that the outside perimeter is very well secured and locked down. And so I'm pretty sure they've got snipers on the rooftops of buildings. They've got drones that they've got up in the air. And so New York is outside of New York and LA when it comes to these high profile cases. They do a very good job of making sure that that area is protected. In LA, as you know, you can do all the planning, and if somebody's determined to do something, they're going to do it. The one thing that they don't have uh, the road closure in front of the courthouse, because as you can see when you're watching some of these cable news networks, you see a lot of vehicle traffic. And one of the things that we've seen is a lot of people are using vehicles to create harm. And so I'm kind of surprised that they have not shut down areas in front of that courthouse and limited to very restrict some of that vehicle traffic because you got a lot of news reporters from around the country, around the world who are there. And if you got somebody who wants to do something similar to what this guy in Minnesota did, all you got to do, or even go back to what took place in New Orleans, earlier in the year, where a person drove his car down and killed a lot of people. It's something to really think about nowadays as to what access are we giving people to be able to create or to commit other types of crimes.
And Chief, I mentioned it's only so many police to go
Yeah,
around
it is.
to help. But now we're getting into these copycat type of situations. This, case in point, where the guy, sets the fire, firemen come, and he shoots two of them, wounds another one. I'm not even sure up to date if he passed or not. I know he had a few surgeries. He was fighting for his life. I mean, that's utterly ridiculous. I mean, arsonists do that. They set fires all the time. Maybe that was his thing. This report allegedly he wanted to be a fireman.
Yeah.
But now we've seen police officers get ambushed like that. Now they're doing it to firefighters who are coming to put out people's fires, and not only that, and save people's lives if they're still stuck in the home or whatever. So what do you do in that situation? How do you put a task force on special task force for different crimes like that, different situations that may take place like that? Because that's not usual now, and it shouldn't become usual in terms of ambushing firefighters.
Yeah. Well, and I think, putting together a certain task force will obviously, where you will get certain intelligence information. But I think a lot of this, LA, is just really, you have so many people out there who, we used to call them lone wolf. They're under the radar. You really don't know who they are until they commit some type of violence, a mass shooting, and then you later find out they had a social media trail. They've had a lot of information out there that was not known to law enforcement. And so I think a lot of times, LA, this is just going to take, we always say, if you see something, say something. And you have family and friends, neighbors who probably they know these individuals, but they're not coming forward to say anything about there's some unusual behaviors that these individuals are having in a very short period of time, or maybe over a long period of time, to where they do need to let law enforcement know. And I think it's also, we cannot do a job without having the public helping with these situations. And so, but once again, I think after every mass shooting or something that has happened, you after that event happens, you look at the person's social media or you look at their phone, and it tells a story of what these people have been doing, and somebody close to them knows something.
But I mean, certain groups of people are gonna not like what I'm saying, but it's the truth. The biggest MO is white people. I mean, outside of the DC snipers, these behavior people, these evil people don't look like us, and so to the point of they profile us. People probably need to profile them because it's usually and it's not even an age thing. I mean, mostly, like I said, to be real with it, is mostly a white thing. This kid that ambushed him was like 20. We've seen other people older than that or probably younger than that.
Yeah.
So, but again, the issue is you see something, say something, then your house gets flooded with calls about someone that might not be dangerous. He might have just said some stuff. So the dynamics it seems to be very tough for police chiefs and officers in these houses.
Well, it is, LA, and I think one thing, we're in a society now where everybody feels like if you do say something, you're kind of getting in somebody's business, or if you don't say something, um, it you kind of wish you would have said something. Especially in the Black community, we've seen where people have called the police with good intentions, but when the police show up, that good intentions turns out to be deadly for the person that really needs some help. We saw this with Sonia Massey, where her mother, called the police because she knew her daughter needed some help, and the officers showed up, and that ended up with the murder of Sonia Massey. And so you've got some people who just don't want to call the police because they have seen incidents like this here happen across the country, and so it's better that they don't. But I think to your point about young white men, committing a lot of these mass shootings, and you don't see a lot of people of color like you and I committing these shootings. I think you have to go back to, what took place in Dallas, Texas, uh, many years ago, where that individual who ambushed a lot of the officers and killed a lot of Dallas police officers was black. So it happens, but it's very rare. You do see a lot more white males between the ages of 20 to 35 who are committing these types of crimes, committing where it involves these mass shootings.
With Chief Virgil Green on the Batchelor News Network. Chief, let's go back to ICE for a second.
Okay.
First of all, I've been doing research. I talked to your colleague, and what power? Who has jurisdiction? So ICE can just come in. You might be a sanctuary city, and they just come in and just start picking up people of color, right? At any point, at any time. Do they have that power? We've seen, like, I've lived in certain parts of or know people in certain parts of North Carolina. Sheriffs have more power than the city cops, or vice versa. I mean, who has the ultimate jurisdiction to make these decisions? Can you stop them, or ICE can just show their badge and come in and do what they want?
Well, I mean, you're talking about a federal agency, and so with ICE, they do have that jurisdiction to come into cities and enforce immigration laws. Municipal police departments are not. We do not enforce immigration laws. You see some county sheriffs who align themselves with ICE, and you see some who don't. But you're dealing with elected officials, and those elected officials, they make that decision whether they want to get involved or whether they don't want to get involved, whether they're in a red state or a blue state, and so or blue state, blue county, whatever it may be. But if ICE comes into a city, there's a courtesy that they may extend to let that agency know that they're in that city. But oftentimes it's not, because they kind of feel like if they say something, somebody's going to tip somebody off, and that will hinder what they're trying to do. So, but again, LA, to you and your listeners, ICE has federal authority to come into a city and enforce immigration laws, and they can do that without the assistance of the local police department or that county sheriff department.
So I guess from a professional standpoint, like you said, you don't force immigration, but as a act of humanity, are you allowed to come up with some solutions to help these immigrants, these undocumented people, and to help them, I guess, or do you just leave it up to the attorneys and the courts to do all that?
Well, that's primarily left up to the courts. Local law enforcement, again, like I just mentioned earlier, that's not an area that you see police departments getting involved with in enforcing immigration laws. Give you an example, the police chief in the city of Minneapolis has came out publicly and said that they do not ask questions about a person's status. They are
right,
not.
But that I'm sorry, but that's the you don't get involved. You don't try to send them away. What I'm asking, I guess, if not from a protocol or professional way, but from a humanitarian way, is there anything municipalities can do to help them not be deported?
I don't think there's a lot that municipalities can do to prevent somebody from being deported. I think that's left up to other organizations to do that. Again, I think it's a very you get into a very gray area where when a local municipality or police department tries to assist individuals who are not documented, and I think again, I don't want to sound like I'm dancing around the question, but I think it's a very it's something that you have to be very careful about because from just a humanity side of it, LA, everybody wants to be in America to work to take care of their families. And these are individuals who are not out here committing crimes. And unfortunately, the politics of what we're dealing with, individuals are being snatched up and being deported back to countries that they have not lived in over several decades. And so it has definitely put some agencies not being aligned with some federal agencies, especially when it comes to ICE, on what they can do to come into your cities to enforce immigration laws.
Yeah, that's it. It's a tough situation to be in. Talking with Chief Virgil Green here on the Batchelor News Report on the network. Again, our poll question is, what do you think about the results and, of course, the verdict in the Puff daddy, Sean Puffy Combs trial?
LA, I'm gonna say, I think it was obviously the prosecution thought they had a very good case, and it's something that we've all followed over the last several weeks or going into a month. And obviously the jury did not see where there were RICO charges or find that
Which
there
was
were.
really ridiculous. RICO
Yeah.
started with the mob. There's no evidence that he had an ongoing illegal enterprise. He's
Criminal
got
enterprise.
And,
Yeah.
yes, he's got
Yeah.
Ciroc and Sean John and all that. Those are all legitimate businesses, and so I think they overreached on that.
Yeah, they did, and I think a lot of just listening to some of the legal experts, the two charges that he was found to be guilty of, were charges that they probably knew that had some merit to them. Now, I think for the judge to say that he's not going to set any bond, even a $1 million bond. Obviously, there were some concerns about, what he could potentially do if he got out. And I think some things happened early on when he was in jail, where he was communicating with people, and they told him not to communicate with some of those individuals. And I think, what he should have done was just, obviously, things turned out better than what he thought in his legal team. But if you're in that high level of an entertainer, don't put yourself in a position to where you're going to lose your freedom, and potentially where you could have gotten out on bail. But I think there were just a lot of concerns about what he could do once he got out. And I don't think, as not physically, but I think what he could do with having communication with other people, and then those individuals having communication with other individuals. So I think there was a very high level of concern about what he could do or what he could not do if he was let out. And the judge didn't do that, prior to his trial. And I think that's why he made that decision. He wasn't going to let him out after he's been found guilty on these other two charges.
Yeah, I understand that, but he could still do damage free or in jail, as evident of him doing that while he was at Rikers, and he's gonna have that power anyway. And those who he can come at, like his ex-girlfriend and others, those civil cases are gonna still be there. So I don't know. I think the judge kind of reached on this and denied the bail. He could have probably set it at 10 million and Puffy would have got out, but he didn't. He denied the bail, so we'll see We'll see what happens. Final question for you though, Chief. And I've asked you this before, but more and more it seems like it's got even more energy, in particular on the internet, is these First Amendment auditors. And I'm torn because they believe in the Constitution. They believe in, the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, and others that apply. Certainly, first and fourth being the most, in particular, in freedom of speech and freedom of the press, freedom to gather and religion. And the Fourth Amendment, and of course, the right to have privacy. That's your persons, that's your house, that's your car, all those type of things. But then we also got to remember that the Constitution, in its original written case, said that blacks weren't even humans.
Correct.
So, they're sticking up for their First Amendment rights. And I get that, but I'm kind of concerned about that. The other thing is some of them go in and do it the right way. They're not calling people names. They're not antagonizing people.
Mm-hmm.
They're just exercising their freedom of speech and their freedom to be in a public space to film and record.
Yeah.
But, you don't have to be nasty about it. You can just go in and do it. So what's your thoughts and how much of experience you and your house and your officers had to deal with these First Amendment auditors?
Well, prior to coming to Minnesota in Oklahoma City metro area, had a lot of experience dealing with these individuals who call themselves First Amendment auditors who would show up at the police department. And a lot of times, LA, it was just to see what type of response they would get from either myself or from my officers. And because it's all about what they can put on social media, what they can put, especially on YouTube, to get people to follow them so they can make more money off of it. And so as long as if individuals, give an example, one day a guy walks into the police department, he has a camera, he's walking around filming. It's not a very large police department. Some people, got concerned, got a little upset. And I said, hey, listen, just give this guy his space. And unless he becomes disruptive and he's rude to the staff or rude to citizens who come in, let him record. Nobody says anything to him. He's going to walk out. And that's exactly what happened. The guy found that he was not going to bait somebody into some kind of conversation with him, even though he asked for my administrative assistant just asked the police chief to come out. She told him I wasn't there. He knew I was there, but I didn't go out and say anything to him. And the guy ended up leaving. And so oftentimes you see officers who put themselves in a compromising position and they want to argue with these individuals because they're saying that you don't have the right to be here. You don't have the right to record. And these individuals, they know what they can and cannot do. And so they're going to push the buttons. And so every situation that I dealt with them, I let them do what they wanted to do. And it was for a very short period of time, LA, because they didn't have nobody to talk to. And so they walked out the door and went on to some, where else they were going. So again, you have some people who know how to do it right, and you have some people who they're in it to try to get more people following them on their YouTube channel. And I've just told officers, don't buy into that. We won't engage with those individuals on that level.
Well, it's you're sort of in the wilderness when it comes to let's say if they go to the post office and the police come, and in some cases it looks like some officers are trying to get them on disorderly conduct or loitering. Those are by definition, they have to truly be defined. And if they're not defined, then it makes it tougher. But should your agency and other agencies educate these people? Because to me, I think it's enough out there if people are really watching the internet to understand if you're in a public place, the plain view doctrine. If I could see it, in public space, I could record it. Yeah. I mean, but these people go straight to call the police, and the police in a lot of agencies know what the deal is. Yet I know they got to respond. I understand that, but why not, instead of responding all the time, tell the post office, tell the banks when they're on the public sidewalk, and tell some of these other public areas, even the police stations, that they have the right to do that? Because to me, going back to not having enough officers to do everything, it's a waste of resources that the police could be doing something else.
Yeah. Well, and I think, again, it all comes back down to educating the public on it. Right. These individuals who call themselves First Amendment auditors, They know what the law is. Uh, Again, they know what they can do, what they can't do. They're going to push it to that limit, and they don't really want to go to jail. But if they can push an officer to arrest them, now they're going to say that they've got a lawsuit against that agency and that officer for violating their rights, uh, violating their First Amendment rights. And so, if individuals go to a library or they go to some other kind of public uh, space, if they're not committing any kind of crimes, if they're not being violent, if there are, and you got some people who are saying, well, I feel uncomfortable, they're recording. Um, and so, again, officers go out. Next thing you know, there's some kind of confrontation. Now, every private business has the right to tell a person that they are not allowed on their property.
Right. They'll be trespassing.
They'll be trespassing.
Right.
Yeah. Now, that is one thing. But at the time, it's not something that a person can be arrested for unless they refuse to leave. So the one thing that I've told the public or business owners, if you don't want these individuals there, this is your private business. You have the right to ban this person. That means you need to tell that person in front of a police officer that they're not allowed or permitted back onto that property. And if they do, now they can be subject to being arrested. And so, and I'll say this, I think the First Amendment auditors several years ago was an issue for local law enforcement. You don't really see that level of First Amendment auditors like we did probably 3 or 4 years ago, maybe prior to COVID. You still do see them, but not as often as we did prior to COVID.
Yeah. And, some people, and I agree, not that it's right, but, people can be uncomfortable, but you're not the feelings enforcement, you're law enforcement.
Yeah.
So people got to get over themselves. Cameras everywhere. You on camera?
There's cameras. Yeah, there's cameras reading your license plates. There's cameras taking pictures, facial recognition. Nobody should feel uncomfortable about a camera, because as soon as you walk into an airport, if you fly, you're going to be on somebody's camera. You're driving down the street, your vehicle, there's license plate readers. So we're just living in a society, in a world where technology is being used, and cameras are there. And business, even private businesses have their own cameras inside and outside of their business. And so, again, LA, I think it's just all comes down how you communicate with somebody. Because if you show up with that aggression and tell these people they need to leave, and they're going to say, well, we're not doing anything, we're standing on this sidewalk, and now you escalate that situation up to another level, they're just going to continue until either you de-escalate it or somebody else de-escalate it. And so individuals will continue to push the buttons, and oftentimes we've seen police officers put themselves in situations that they after wish they wouldn't have done so.
Yeah, and two quick things that, if officers violate their rights and they threaten to sue, most cases they're not. The city pays them or whatever. If the city loses, I don't see a lot of officers losing qualified immunity over that. That. And then the other thing, if people say, well, you can't record me in public, I didn't ask for permission. Well, you go to Disneyland, you see people taking pictures all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, so people, common sense approach and be educated so you understand. Finally, before you go, you can comment on that, but tell people about the show and how they can follow.
Yeah, I'm just going to say one thing real quick, LA, to you and your listeners. You see a lot of these, in Texas, what do they call them? The guys who pop up out of the bushes, the Bushmans or whatever they call them.
Right.
There are people who, and all those people who are walking by are being recorded. I've never seen one person I've seen them get upset with the Bushmen because they've been scared, but nobody is upset because that camera or nobody has sued, came back and said, I didn't give you permission to put my image out on social media, especially when you're in a public place. So again, it's something that people got to get used to. But to jump on our podcast, the name of the podcast is You and the Law Podcast. It's always LA. I have to go back and thank you for giving me and my former host of the show the opportunity to put together an idea that we had about hosting a law enforcement podcast, and we came on your network. We were on your network for a number of years, and now we've been doing this podcast for 5 years now, and so it's all about having an honest conversation with the public about policing in America, knowing what your rights are, knowing what officers can do and what they shouldn't be doing. And so it's been fun to, and at the same time, it's been a great experience to have conversations with the public about policing in America and what is going on and how we could become better police officers. And like I said, we talk about the good and the bad. I mean, we talked about things from Sonia Massey to the goon squads down in Mississippi, to all kind of topics. So nothing is off limits, especially when it comes to being engaged with the public and informing those who listen about what is going on with policing, especially in the Black and brown community.
Well, I always love having you on because you have answers that the audience wants to know, and you do a great job, not just as the chief, but just being fair and honest. I mean, because just like if you're on recording, I mean, cops can make themselves look good or bad. It's really up to them. So,
well, LA, and I've said this for the last, 5 years being on our podcast, and I said it even before the podcast. I wake up as a Black man, I put on a uniform or I put on a suit. At the end of the day, at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day, I'm a Black man. But you have this situation called being, Black and blue. You got to, you have to be true to who you are. Right. And oftentimes we shy away from, we think it's controversial. We don't want to get in the middle of it, but I think people need to, have the respect and hear the voices of those of us who are in this profession, and not sugarcoat things when you can clearly see that there's something wrong and something wrong did happen, and not try to sugarcoat it and try to make some sense of it. You can make some sense of it, but in reality, some things shouldn't have happened. And I think that's where, and hopefully the public respects and appreciates having those conversations with Black law enforcement leaders, because at the end of the day, like I just said, I'm a Black man, but I'm in this profession. But I want people to know what their rights are and more so what police officers can do and what they shouldn't be doing. And if you do have a problem, what is the proper procedure to file a complaint, and to hold these officers accountable?
And I'm not sure if the women in police, women who are police and mental health, I'm not sure if that show aired yet, or is that your next show coming up? Okay.
No, that is the show that's coming up tomorrow, where I'm going to have a guest on. Candy, who has been she's been on our podcast before. She's out of the Little Rock, Arkansas area. She is an advocate for women, and we're going to be talking about the mental health of Black women. In LA, I don't know if you've talked about this on your podcast, but it's something we're going to be talking about tomorrow. The Black lady in Houston last week, I think she was 64 years old, who intentionally ran her vehicle into an 18-wheeler. She was not injured, but she got out of that vehicle. She had an old school lawn chair, and she put that lawn chair right dead in the middle of a very busy Houston freeway and shut down traffic, and had a weapon to her head. And they were able to talk to this lady, and it ended up very well. But we're going to have a conversation about what is going on with the mental health of Black women. And oftentimes Black women don't seek out that help. And if they do, LA, and to the listeners, if they even do seek out that help, oftentimes they're turned away. And so we're going to have this conversation about Black women and their mental health. And the movie that Tyler Perry did on Straw, I think I've heard some criticism about the movie. I watched it, thought it was a great movie. And at the end, you kind of understood the twist of the movie, but it also goes to show you the trauma that Black women are dealing with, and what outlet does Black women have to express the things that they're dealing with and the trauma that they're dealing with. And so looking forward to that podcast topic tomorrow, and hopefully some people will come on and join us, because I think it's going to be a very good, interesting conversation to have about Black women and mental health.
Yeah, it's we've talked about it ad nauseum, and I saw the movie, and kind of surprised that most people want to see a happy ending, but she lost everything. And
well, and LA, and
really
I think
tough.
Yeah, and I think just the fact that when you sit there and it's kind of like, okay, she has a baby, and then you realize something happened where she doesn't, and the movie didn't end the way people are used to Tyler Perry movies ending, but I think it had a message, and that message was that Black women are dealing with something that is not often talked about, just like Black men. But I think Black women are dealing with things, and this lady, it goes to show you, just even in a movie, how Black women can be portrayed. But if you look at what happened with the lady in Houston who was dealing with a mental health crisis, whatever she was dealing with, she felt the only way she was going to get somebody's attention was to do what she did. And fortunately, it did not end tragic, but it definitely raises the question and the conversation about mental health between Black men and Black women.
Yeah, Tara P was really good too.
Oh yeah, she was.
Yeah. Chief, as always, man, keep your head
sir.
up, keep your head down, man. We love you here, and we'll talk with you soon.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
All right, man. Chief Virgil Green, always good to have him on at length, and bringing some insight to policing in this era of the orange orangutan. Take a quick break and come back.
HBCU, Pro Sports Media Association, providing accurate and comprehensive coverage of historically Black colleges and university sports, news, features, commentary, analysis, and multimedia content from the leading voices in Black media. We are committed to telling the stories of HBCU athletes and programs. Visit us at hbcuprosportsmedia.com.
Welcome back to the Batchelor News Network, the Batchelor News Report. MLA Batchelor, we thank you for joining us. If you're on YouTube, um, please do sign up and subscribe to our page there, so you can be in the know of what we're doing, and of course Facebook, Pat Nation One as well. Want to bring in Gary Norris Gray, um, my colleague, and Gary, appreciate you coming on, man. I wanted to get your thoughts on the Puffy verdict. Again, if people don't know, it was kind of split. He was found guilty on 2 counts, um, and not guilty of sex trafficking and racketeering. Some people, I already got people and put in the chat that he got away with it and all this kind of stuff. People are torn from the spectrum, different spectrums, whether he got in trouble because he was black, he didn't get caught because he was powerful, he didn't get charged with some of the things because he was powerful. He raped his ex-girlfriend. This is what someone just put in, sent in the chat room. But look, the only one I know was ridiculous charge was the RICO charge. There is no ongoing criminal conspiracy like the mob. The mob had, the Cosa Nostra, where they had the 5 families, and they were doing that for decades until RICO came to the feds, put RICO in place. This doesn't apply to Sean Puffy Combs. But you can debate on the other ones. The sex trafficking, most men are not going to admit that they were sex trafficked, if you will, from a macho standpoint. And then you have his ex-girlfriend who said after they broke up, he raped her. So it's a lot on the table. What's your thoughts on the trial and the verdict?
Number one, America has stopped playing the race card. What I mean is this: you have a convicted felon in the White House, who is a sex fiend. He has children by 3 different women. See, as an African American male, you have to be careful what you do, how you do it. Right? Puff Daddy to know that in the beginning. What I'm saying is this: the more you get, the more profile you get, the more careful you have to be. Right? Look at football players, basketball players, hockey players. You can't do certain things anymore because you're in the public eye. That's what I'm saying. See, again, they want to make an example of this man, which is what he's gonna do.
Well, I think, and someone said he's still facing up to 15 years in prison for the transportation, prostitution, guilty charges. And of course, I don't know if he's going to do 15 years, considering he barely got a record, and he's a first time offender. So I doubt he already spent 10 months in Rikers. So I mean, it's a lot that may go into whatever the sentences is. However, go ahead.
What bothers me about this is another black man, a high-profile black male again, and yet all the news agencies are making a big deal. All the TV, cameras, everything. So where is the equality? Where is the equality coming at? Where is the justice really coming at?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah, I did. I caution people to say he's because he's found not guilty that he's guilty. Jury of his peers said in those three different charges he was not guilty. Um, as far as to the rape and things, and you know, even if his ex, is not telling the truth, I think she's credible. But even if that wasn't something that the jury looked at, remember what happened to Bill Cosby
Yep,
when all the charges came out. How did that work out for him?
yep,
So you could be guilty in the court of public opinion. Civil, he's got it's still civil lawsuits out there against Puffy, just like it is and was with Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby has not recovered. Now, obviously, they're two different people. They're two different people in terms of where they are in their life and their careers. But he's still a black man that got convicted on some charges, and still people said well, he's guilty, and he's been punished financially and otherwise in the court of public opinion. So let's not say that Puffy, even if he, gets probation or something like that, that this is not going to damage his brand.
he will never be. He will never be what he was before. That's part of this too. That I'm kind of mad at because if you're Caucasian and you do this, you tried. You tried. What I mean is this: Bill Cosby was sent to jail. Right? Did the Playboy Bunny man, you have to go to jail? And you think you have to want to do the same thing?
The only thing I'd say about that, Gary, is I mentioned Bill Cosby. We see the mayor of New York avoiding charges because Trump's told the Justice Department to make it go away. So there's some pros and cons. You could look at it in two different ways, because that was a black man that got away with some charges, some allegations. But here we have Sean. I think the bottom line though is, if you don't want to be in this controversy, if you don't want people to debate your case, if you don't want to be found guilty, stay the hell out of trouble.
Yeah.
See, a lot of these people have enablers. They have yes people around, and they feel like in some cases they're God. They can't touch me. I'm Puffy.
Mm-hmm.
And so the morals of the story, Gary, wouldn't you think is, people get in trouble all the time, but at this level, you've been doing this for this long, allegedly, right? So at some point, especially after this, one would think he'll keep his nose clean. But I would think the ultimate problem and the beginning of the problem is, they're doing these things and think they can get away with it all the time. And as a black man, going back to that part of race, you certainly are not on the level of a Donald Trump or anybody allowed, Harvey Weinstein, people like to bring up, he was so egregious that they had to get him. I mean, so egregious. But, from that point of race is what you're saying, especially rich black people. Look what Tyler Perry's going through. I'm not saying he did this with this man, this $260 million lawsuit this white man has on him. I don't know if it's true or not. But at some point, you have to have some buffers, right? So you can have plausible deniability. I don't know anything about that. And it would be true, because you got people handling that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So they stop getting into these major troubles and then think that, look at R. Kelly. again, it depends on who it is. R. Kelly, the president, he didn't pardon him. His ass is still in jail.
Yeah.
So, I mean, isn't it the fact that Gary just stay out of trouble? Wouldn't that be the
Well, okay. If you brought again, it goes back to the beginning. Your mother and father brought you up. How you went to school. How you went to church. If you went to church and your mom and dad told you certain things, you wouldn't do it. You wouldn't do anything in the first place. And you wouldn't have people around you that would even think about doing things like this. My mom and dad told me, don't bring bad people around you. You don't need them, and it's right. If you keep bad people away, you usually will not fall into the trap.
Yeah, I got people sending me in the room that Eric Adams is a bad example because he wasn't actually charged, but the allegations were there. I mean, he wasn't found guilty, is what they should be saying. He was. There were allegations of him taking bribes and things of that nature. So why is it the same thing? It might be a different crime, but it's the same type of allegation, and his went away. Now he's running um, uh, against a socialist
He gonna lose. He
Democrat.
gonna lose too. He gonna lose that race too.
Yeah, and then the Cuomo's, Mr. Cuomo that wants to run as an independent after getting hammered by this young man are like the Clintons and the Bushes. It's like, go sit down. We're tired of New York is tired of the Cuomos. Go sit down. They don't want no more Cuomos. It is very evident. And there's an example. What do you have? 13 women said he sexual assaulted him and proper things, and yet he still got enough base to get 35% of the vote in the primary. So it's crazy. A final point to the macro, and that would be this president and this bill, as he calls this big, beautiful bill. It's a big piece of crap, is what it is. People are so upset now, and I didn't sign up for this. When people say that, that means they voted for this clown. And if you voted for this clown, then you're getting what you deserve and put everybody at peril. Really? He told you about 2025, Project 2025. He had it all laid out about the cuts of Medicaid, getting rid of education, getting rid of the IRS, getting rid of Head Start, getting rid of all these different, getting rid of the EPA so we can have dirty water, taxing renewable energy, all that stuff. In Project 2025, they told you it was coming.
Told you, and he did.
And now everybody's shaking their head and they crying and they losing their mind, and it's all over the internet, and it's happening. And I don't know if it's more disgusting for him to do what he did, or those senators who voted to support this bill on the backs of a lot of people who are going to be in bad shape. When people lose, what people don't understand is if they cut healthcare, Medicaid, which is a form of Obamacare, which white folks didn't even want when you say Obamacare, you cut that, all these people are going to be out of insurance. And then once that happens, guess what? The people with insurance, their premium's going to go up. So it's a lose-lose. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
All right, let me go through a couple of things that you went through here. Right. Number one, I want this to be very crystal clear. Donald J. Trump is a villain, a convicted villain. And if you're a villain, you cannot. If you're like me or you, LA, and you get convicted of a villain, you cannot apply for certain jobs. You cannot vote. You cannot hold public office if you're a convicted felon. Donald J. Trump is the president of the United States. What's wrong with that picture? What is wrong with that picture? Number two, Republican Party, shame on you. We're back in this bull, okay? Shame on you for even writing this bill. And in the bill, well, you know, if you have an internet, go read the bill. Go read the bill.
Yeah.
Because in the bill, it has a clause for ending voting rights. In the bill, they took it out this week. In
Yeah.
the bill, it has welfare reform. They're completely out. So they know, the Republicans know it's wrong, but they
Right.
still push it anyway.
And Mike Johnson just paused to vote because he's got the Freedom Caucus and other people that are not down with this bill. So
No,
maybe it's a glimmer of hope to see what happens. Gary, I got to run, but let's get you on next time because I want to talk about the Panthers. I asked Andrew Dixon, is OKC on their way to a dynasty? Well, the Panthers beat Edmonton back to back. And so we'll discuss that because it's very hard and it's very rare to win titles in all the sports, in particular the NHL. That's it for us. If you missed any part of the broadcast, you can go to our Facebook page and our YouTube page, Pat Nation One. Pat Nation One, you'll see it there in its entirety. You can subscribe there. And if you're on Facebook at Pat Nation One, please hit the like button. It helps us immensely. That's it. We appreciate you. Join us again on the Batchelor News Report on the Batchelor News Network.